Hey, I'm not sure if you saw, but the state has kind of defined what the COVID vaccine plan is going to be moving forward over the next month. Do you guys have any sort of game plan laid out for the program? And how will this impact you personally with the situation that you're in? Thanks.
Yeah, so personally, it has not changed a whole lot for me, and I don't know when it will. I'm staying in my garage over my house. I'm still at my house, kind of a separate garage, and I'm staying in an apartment over there. So we've been still separated from the family, and will be for a while. From a football perspective, we're still kind of following all the guidelines, based on Andy Mutton, our trainer, and really specifically Wayne Sebastianelli and Dr. Billy. So, really, whatever we need to do, from a Penn State athletic department perspective, whatever we have to do from a Big Ten perspective. I think here recently the Big Ten just kind of loosened some of their requirements in terms of fans and things like that, allowing people to handle it campus by campus and state by state based on local guidelines. So we're still following it. Obviously, it won't have a significant impact on us this time of year. And then we're hopeful, obviously, by the summertime and things like that, we can hopefully get back to, some form of normalcy. What that is, a new normal or what, I'm not completely sure yet. But I think that's what we're all working really hard to hopefully get back to. I hope that answered your question, Mark.
Audrey Snyder, and then we'll go to Tyler Donahue.
Hey, James. Good evening.
Hey, Audrey.
How have you kind of seen your defensive ends progress this spring, and specifically Adisa and Arnold? How have they kind of looked to you?
Yeah, Adisa's, played a decent amount of football for us now. And Arnold, obviously, has played a decent amount of football. Just not specifically at Penn State. They both have had a good off season. I'd still like to get a few more, pounds of lean muscle mass on them, both of them. But they're both athletic, explosive. They both have length. They both have maturity, which is important to us. It's something I know that Coach Pry emphasizes all the time, having a mature defense. And, they've flashed some really good things. But, you'd like to see them, both come next season, be in the mid to high 250s so that they can play the complete season, over 250 pounds. I think both of them have a history of kind of losing weight as the season goes on for them to be the every down defensive ends that we need them to be. So, we've been pleased with them. We've been pleased with them. I do think Arnold was a really nice, pickup for us. And I think we've done a really good job, not only athletically, but culturally is a really good kid and has been a great fit for us and pretty excited about him. I should say young man, excuse me.
Tyler Donahue, and then Dubias, you're on deck.
Hi, James. Good evening. Thank you for your time.
You as well, Tyler.
Wanted to talk about John Lovett, another transfer that you brought in. You were so proactive as a staff. I think he was committed within 3 or 4 days of the Illinois game. Why was he such a key target for you? And is your evaluation of his time in a Nittany Lions uniform so far?
Well, I think for us, there's value. There's value in trying to get involved with guys that we have known longer than a few days in the transfer portal. If we're going to bring, young men to our campus and to our community, and you kind of want to have an understanding of who they are. And if you're just doing that through the transfer portal, it's hard to do that. It's amazing to me how many programs take guys from other schools and they never call the previous school. So for us, we've recruited John Lovett out of high school. So that really helps. You had a relationship with him throughout his high school recruiting process. And then you were able to kind of follow him. It's kind of interesting how it goes. Guys that we recruited, I think some of you guys do the same thing. You kind of follow them from afar and see how they're doing. Guys that maybe we didn't go on, and how are they doing at other schools, or guys that we didn't get, and how are they doing at other schools, and was it a miss or was it not a miss? So tracking him, during his time at Baylor, and had a good career there. And then obviously there's a lot of connections with Penn State and the old Baylor staff. So being able to talk to them, there was value in that. So it helped us because we knew who he was. He's also a regional kid, being from New Jersey. That helped. And it's funny, John's like some of the guys that we've recruited. It was John and his brother, if I remember correctly, and his dad. And his dad pretty much had John committed, and John kept saying, well, I want to take it slow and kind of feel out the process. And John's dad was, pretty much sold on him coming to Penn State. So, but I think that kind of that relationship and kind of understanding and doing our homework and finding out as much information as we possibly can. And a young man that you had a pre-existing relationship with through the high school recruiting process helps with that.
New bias Wilborn, and then we'll go to Nick Fierro.
Thanks for the time as always. So far, what have you noticed? Obviously, you're familiar with Johnson. What have you noticed with the rest of your receiving room, particularly the younger guys who are trying to come up and fill roles?
Yeah, it's going to be obviously an important spring. As well as the rest of this spring and then the off season, and those guys taking the next step. Obviously, you have kind of two different thresholds. You got CSB as a guy that I think there's a lot of excitement about, a guy that going into last year was the starter, and then you have obviously Parker and Keandre, who ended up playing a lot of football for us last year, and based on targets, they both had a pretty decent amount of success, based on targets and opportunities that they had. So it's going to be interesting for them. Can they take that next step in their careers now, kind of understanding what it takes? And then there's the other guys as well that, redshirted, whether it's a Mega, whether it's a Dotton, whether it's a Daniel George, there's a number of guys that we could discuss like that, that we're gonna need those guys to take the next step. I think if you look at the production and experience we got coming back at pretty much every other position, we're in a better situation than we were this time last year at wideout, but we're still going to need a couple guys to step up for us. So. It's been good this spring, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Nick Fierro, and then Greg Pickle.
Hi, James. This is I want to just kind of stick with that and talk about Jahan Dotson a little bit more. I know we talked to him the other day, and he was talking about he wants to be a legendary player. He wants to be a Saquon Barkley type player. And what's that going to take for him? And have you seen those qualities from him sort of emerge over this last year? And so what are your expectations of him?
Well, I think one of the things that we talked about as a team, last week in our team meetings was, that in a game like football, the ultimate team game, you just got to make sure that your individual goals go hand in hand with team goals. And when that happens, you got a chance to do some pretty special things. With team success comes individual recognition. And, typically, the best players from the best teams get the most recognition, get the most recognition. So, Jahan, I think, made a decision as a family to come back to Penn State for a number of reasons. And, I have a really good relationship with his mom and dad, and we had very direct, honest, conversations with each other and transparent, and they asked tough questions. And, This was the decision that they made to come back, and that was part of it, to be a part of a special season, and to be a part of a special season for Jahan individually as well. And we talked a little bit about, I think you guys know this. There's always the couple guys that kind of come out of nowhere, but more times than not, it's the guy that people were already talking about in preseason, that there's already a national buzz about. And I think Jahan fits into that category. I think at the end of last season, he was playing as good as anybody, but now coming into this year, he's coming in with a buzz, and there's a lot of excitement and anticipation about it. And I think he's had a really good offseason in the weight room and things like that. He just looks physically different. And that's going to be something that's going to be important for him as well, because whether you like it or not, the eyeball test counts.
Greg Pickle, and then we'll go to T. Frank.
James, are there any, or who are the players who impressed you on paper coming out of winter workouts that have carried over to the field now about halfway through spring practice?
Yeah, so I would say, we call him AK, Arnold. I think, he kind of stood out in winter workouts. And, you're probably biased a little bit because, it's a fresh set of eyes. So the guys that you don't know as well, they probably stand out a little bit more. I would say, Johnny Dixon has stood out on the football field. He had to kind of figure out the winter workouts and kind of work through that part of it. But he's stood out on the football field. Again, the new guys, they just seem to jump out at you a little bit more because you're evaluating them with a fresh set of eyes. I'd say that Kalen King is another guy like that falls into that category. I think Rasheed Walker is practicing the way he needs to practice to be the type of player that he wants to be. I've seen a real change in him. Mike Miranda is a guy that just continues to steadily get better. I've noticed him. Our tight end, unit as a group is strong. Our running back group as a unit is strong. I think, Sean's on a mission after 2 years ago, having a really good year as a first-time starter, and then as a program, us having challenges. Last year, I've seen a lot of growth from him. And then obviously, Brisker came back for a reason. He's jumped out to me. I know I'm going to miss some people, but I'm just kind of going. PJ Mustapher is really, he's kind of a lead by example guy in everything that he does. I'm super proud of PJ. And he just continues to attack it the way you want. So I've been impressed with him. So there's a number of guys, Castro Fields, you can make the same argument about him. It's probably the group of young guys that you're evaluating for the first time that stand out to you. And they're those seniors that came back for a reason and they're kind of on a mission. They're probably the guys that stand out to you the most. And it's hard to say seniors now because this whole NCAA thing with, are they seniors, super juniors, sophomores, super sophomores, freshmen, super freshmen, whatever all this means, it's chaos.
We have time for two more. We'll start with T. Frank, and then we'll end with Ben Jones.
Hey, James, good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
I want to ask you about your running game. There are certain running
Frank?
schemes that you – yeah.
Where is this setup that you have? Is it in the office? Is it in the bedroom? Is it in the basement? Where is this setup you have?
This is actually in our second bedroom, which also doubles as the bunny room. So we've got a lot of stuff going on out here.
I'm assuming you mean getting ready for Easter?
No. My wife owns bunnies, so we have just a pet bunny.
You understand?
I block.
You understand how I could get that confused with the timing of it, though, for Easter, right?
Absolutely. Also, why people would be very confused that there's a bunny in an apartment, but we do what we do here.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about your running schemes that you've used over the years. You've stayed away from some of them for the most part, regardless of who the offensive coordinator has been for you. I guess without asking about specific reasons, why? What are you looking for in a running game, and what is it that you like about the systems that you have used that you stay with and you're committed?
Yeah. So one of the things that we were really excited about last year was the outside zone, and we just didn't have any history, in the outside zone. So we needed the reps to install it, and then not having any spring football, we weren't able to get that going the way we wanted to get it going. And that was a big part of I think what we were going to be last year. So we weren't able to do that, but I do think there's a place for the outside zone. And for me, I always kind of look at it as the head coach. And to me, how can I not only put my offense in the best position to be successful, but how can I also give my defense the things that they need to see in practice that's going to allow them? Because if you don't run the outside zone as an offense and then you're trying to defend it, that's challenging. The same way, getting into heavy sets, whether it's 22 personnel or 12 personnel or 21 personnel. And I think with our tight end unit, we had decided last year as well as this year that, those guys, we got to get them on the field because we're talented at that position and we were young and inexperienced at wide receiver. So, I think we have more flexibility than we've ever had. I think we're going to open the season with like 4 fullbacks, the quarterback under center, and the stadium's just going to go and just explode, and everybody's going to go crazy. But I do think we have a little bit more flexibility, and having this spring, I think has really helped us because again, the last year we didn't have it, so really been able to maximize this spring, lay a foundation this spring, and then build on it in the fall, I think is going to be really important to us. But with the number of tight ends that we have, it creates flexibility. And then, obviously, everybody's going to run inside zone. Our gap schemes were probably our best last year. We want to continue to build on that. And then, being able to get into the perimeter, get into the perimeter running game stuff is important for us too. So, having a good mix of all those things. And then I think whenever you can have, your quarterback as a threat, we want to limit that and not depend on that and go crazy with that. But when the defense has to respect the quarterback as a runner, that's important.
And last question for Coach Franklin, we'll go to Ben Jones.
Hey, James, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Ben?
Good. I have no livestock in my house.
None.
It's just me.
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is a rabbit considered livestock? Like in my mind, livestock has to be a certain size, like a certain threshold, or is anything that's living considered livestock? Do you know that answer?
I don't know. I mean, you can eat it, so I guess that's sort of like.
So that's what the threshold for livestock is. Can you eat it?
I honestly have absolutely no idea, but I'm running with that in case I get hungry. I want to go back to something you said last week, which I thought was interesting, that there's really only so many ways to draw up the offense that you want to run. If I gave you 5 variations of the same idea, what are sort of the nuances and details that would make you pick one of those 5?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding your question correctly, for me, again, it's not just based on the offense. I want to look at it in terms of what's going to give our offense the best chance to be successful, but what is also going to prepare our defense for what they're going to see week in and week out. So that's being multiple, being able to line up in empty, being able to line up in 3 wides, being able to line up in maybe 3 wide personnel, but from a spread set with a tight end in the game. that you're lining up as a wide receiver or connected to the offensive line, whether that's getting in 12 personnel and really being able to run everything, whether it's spread sets, whether it's getting into more traditional sets with a true tight end and a what you could probably describe as an H-back, a movement guy, which is really what we did a lot of at Vanderbilt, which really can kind of fill the role as a fullback. And then I think tempo is important because tempo is a weapon. And again, if you don't have true tempo in your offense, it's hard to get your defense ready for it. And to be honest with you, we've never been tempo. We've really never been tempo. We've been no huddle and we've been look, but we've never really been no huddle. So I think being multiple is something that's always been really important to me. As a former offensive coordinator and as an offensive head coach, that's what we were able to do, and that's what we'd like to get back to doing. So, and then I think the last one that I think we have done a pretty good job of is being explosive. You got to be explosive on offense. And then the last one is you got to be ball secure. So those are the things that are probably most important to me is I want to be ball secure, which we've done a pretty good job of that over our time here. We did not do a good job of that last year. We want to be explosive. Those are probably those two, when you talk to the analytics people, are the two most powerful statistics you got. So you want to be those things. And then you want to be multiple, anywhere from spread, no backs, gun, to being able to use your personnel like we do with a strong tight end unit of getting those guys on the field, which allows you to, probably the most flexibility out of any position group you have, because you can line up in traditional spread sets or put those guys in the backfield or connected to the offensive line. So those are probably the things, Ben, that are important to me. And tempo is the other one. There's been coaches that I've interviewed and hired, and they've sold themselves as tempo guys, but then we weren't really that. So I think that can be a weapon for you as well. And again, for me, I'm always looking at it as how does it prepare our offense and our defense. And I think that's where you have to be careful. Some of these spread teams, they score 60 points a game, but they give up 58 or 64 points a game. And you have to be very, very careful as an offensive head coach that everything isn't tilted towards the offense and you put your defense in a very challenging situation.